Hey there, how you doing tonight, everybody? 7 o'clock, authentic with Corky Messner. I got other electronics set up here, so when you see me looking down, I'm looking at my computer, my laptop. It's and I gotta finish this message. It's a beautiful, beautiful evening here on Lake Wentworth, as you can see. Got a nice fire going, so that's kind of cool. And I'm going to give this a few minutes for people to join. All right, let me finish that. Okay, that's done. And so yeah, it's a beautiful night here on Lake Wentworth in Wolfboro, and so I'm thankful for everyone taking the time to join this tonight. One of the things I try to do is, I call this authentic because I'm not on here to repeat talking points that you hear on Fox News or from other politicians. I try to give you a different insight into things that are going on and what you're hearing and so forth. And one thing I want to talk about tonight is what I called Liz Cheney bait and switch. And let me tell you what I mean by that. It's, I think it's incredibly significant. And let me explain to you why. Liz Cheney bait and switch. If you've been paying attention, she got wiped out in the Republican primary in Wyoming. I mean, she lost by almost 40 points. And I know Wyoming a little bit. Senator Cynthia Lummis is a friend of mine. I did some business with her and worked for her back in the day when she was the state treasurer of Wyoming. So I know a little bit about the state, not much. So Liz Cheney lost by 40 points, and she lost by 40 points primarily because of her actions on the January 6th committee and how she's been attacking President Trump. And here's the thing that's interesting about this, in my opinion. The polls has shown her behind by 35 points all along. She raised $15 million in her campaign. $15 million she raised. And she spent on her campaign $7.5 million. All right, she raised 15, she spent $7.5 million. And so I started thinking about that. I said, well, is she going to give that money back to the donors? Absolutely not. She's going to roll it over into some other, maybe her presidential campaign. But the point is, she knew she was behind, and she was asking for money for her reelection, when in fact she knew she was far behind, and she knew, in my opinion, she knew she wasn't going to spend that money. So that feels like a bit of a trick to me. All right, now here's the point I want to make about bait and switch. And one of the things that she's criticized President Trump about is, him raising money in his PAC for a defense fund relating to January 6th. And there's been a lot of criticism from Liz Cheney about whether President Trump was being fraudulent in raising money for a defense fund and how much of that money was used for a defense fund. So lo and behold, Liz Cheney did the same thing in her campaign. She never intended to spend all that money. She was so far behind, she never intended. And if she thought she could win, she would have spent that money. So total bait and switch, total hypocrisy. For her on the one hand to be criticizing Trump for his fundraising activities, yet that she's out raising all this money for her campaign, which she knew she was going to lose, and she knew she wasn't going to spend that money on the campaign. So Liz Cheney, send the money back to your donors. Send it back. Because I believe you obtained it fraudulently. Send the money back, Liz Cheney, and stop the hypocrisy. Get off Trump's back, and you're criticizing him for something that you did, and you did it with malice aforethought. You know, that's a legal term for criminal intent. And send the money back, Liz Cheney. And it demonstrates the problems with Washington, D.C. Liz Cheney never cared about Wyoming. She only cares about Liz Cheney. And so, you know, they are, there's no better example of the swamp than the Cheney family. So that's what I wanted to talk about on the Liz Cheney bait and switch. Now I want to talk about the U.S. Senate race and the Republican primary and the debate that happened the other day on Jack Heath's radio show. The first thing I want to say is no matter who wins these primaries, we Republicans must support the winning candidate from the primaries. We must support whoever wins in the general election. And we Republicans have not done a very good job of that in the past, but we must do it. And the reason it's so important now, if you're watching the polls, you know, and all this talk we've heard for months about the red wave coming, the polls indicate there is no red wave. I mean, there's no wave. It's going to be as even as that lake. So in order for Republicans to win in New Hampshire, we must support whoever wins the primary, the U.S. Senate race, the Congressional District 1, Congressional District 2, the governor's race, state senators, state reps. We must support the winner no matter what. And I say that from the perspective that when I won the primary in 2020 against Don Bolduc, you know, Don Bolduc and his supporters did not support me. They did not support me. It's well known. It's a known fact. And so we have to change it. And now I'm going on the record tonight saying that if Don Bolduc wins the U.S. Senate primary, I will support him. I will be doing this Facebook Live supporting him. I will do for him whatever he asks me to do. So that's that. Support the winner of the Republican primary. Now, as far as the debate goes, you know, let me just get into that. And if anyone has any questions, you know, please type it in there, and I'll do my best to answer it. The other thing is send me an email if there's something you want me to cover on one of these Facebook Lives, Corky Messner at gmail.com, or call me or send me a text. My phone number is 603-515-6542. 603-515-6542. And if there's something you want to talk to me, just let me know. Now, the U.S. Senate Republican debate on Jack Heath's show, I called in after and gave Jack some analysis. Let me say this: I don't think anybody really separated themselves in that debate. I think each of them missed an opportunity, and here's the opportunity that, in my opinion, they missed. Is Jack asked, should President Trump run in 2024, and each of them kind of gave a wishy-washy answer, and here's the issue with that. Right now, I think the latest St. A's poll had 33% thereabouts undecided in that race, and I think many of those undecided are Trump supporters waiting to see if President Trump's going to weigh in and endorse anybody in this race. And if someone would have come out and strongly said that he should run in 2024, I think they would have picked up a lot of people, enough to move the needle. But I don't think anyone distinguished themselves. I think, let me just say, Bruce Fenton mentioned 2 or 3 times at least that he has more money than anybody. I think most, if not 99% of that money is his own money. So the question I have for Bruce Fenton is, are you going to spend it? Are you going to spend that money? And it's one thing to have money, your own money in your campaign. It's another thing to actually spend it versus giving it back to yourself. So that's one of the questions I have for him. I thought Vikram is very smart, articulate, well-spoken. I think he got into this race way too late. He's polling at, I think, 2 or 3 or 4%. But I wish he'd have gotten in 9 months ago, and I think he could have been very competitive if he got in much longer ago. So, smart guy, articulate. I think Kevin Smith, he's I think he's doing a pretty good job. He's going on the offensive. He went after Don Bolduc. He went after Chuck Morse at one point. I think he even went after Bruce Fenton, if I'm remembering correctly. I think in the St. A's poll, he was at like 4%. Quite frankly, that caused me to really question the St. A's poll, because I think he's probably much higher than 4%. Chuck Morse is, Chuck Morse, if you know him, he's a wonderfully nice guy, smart as can be. He knows politics. He understands politics. I wish he would show some more passion and energy, and let go of his personality a bit to allow people to know who he really is. I think Don Bolduc is Don Bolduc. He took some shots, based on his last comments, and I think one of the issues with Don is, he says a lot of things that really sound way out there, and he says things that he probably shouldn't say. And he was asked about that. I don't think he answered that question very well. But I got to tell you, Don Bolduc is in the lead. He is in the lead according to the polls. Now, I don't believe he's as far ahead as the St. A's poll says, but I do think he's ahead. I did, and I mentioned this on Jack Heath's show, that when they asked him about the comment he made a few months ago on Fox News about boots on the ground, and he said it was taken out of context. Then he went on to say that, hey, everybody, whether you know it or not, we have boots on the ground in Ukraine, and that the CIA is there and special ops are there. And I got to tell you something. I read a lot. I pay attention a lot to everything. I've not seen anything that verifies that. And my issue with that is, if it's true, he shouldn't be saying it. He should not be saying it. If it's not true, he shouldn't be saying it. So that's the kind of thing that Don comes off and pops off with, that, it's sort of shake my head moments. But as I said earlier, if he wins a primary, I will do everything I can to help him win. Now, this is important, this Senate race, and let me tell you why. There are probably 10 competitive U.S. Senate races throughout the country. One of them is New Hampshire. But if you look at the latest polls, we Republicans are in trouble. Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, the incumbent, is behind. I think the latest poll has him behind 7 points. Marco Rubio in Florida is behind. Val Demings. Oz in Pennsylvania is way behind in Pennsylvania. Herschel Walker's a little bit behind in Georgia. The Arizona Senate race, Kelly against Masters, I think his name is. Masters is behind. So the point I'm making, and this is what I said earlier about all this red wave talk, forget about it. Forget about it. We have to work. We have to get out there. We must support the winning candidate from the primary, especially because the time period is so short. And when you look at this Senate map, I got it pulled up on my computer here. I mean, the Senate's 50-50 right now. Of these 10 close races, we need to win. We need to win 6 to get control of the Senate. And right now, it doesn't look like we're going to win 6. So we can help here in New Hampshire by getting out, volunteering, donate if you can to the winning candidate from the U.S. Senate Republican primary. All right. So I urge everybody, no matter what, no matter who you're supporting in the primary, help the person who wins the general election. So it's extremely important, extremely important. So the debate, I think radio debates are hard. It's hard to pick a winner. You don't see the body language and all that. If I had to say, I would say, I would put Kevin Smith and Chuck Morris right there as maybe doing the best job on the debate. I would put Vikram right behind them. Then I would probably put Bruce Fenton and Don Bolduc sort of next to mine, about the same. So that's how I see it. And these last we're less than 4 weeks away now from the primary. Get out to vote, support your candidate. But it's it's gonna be interesting these last 3-4 weeks, and that's when most people pay attention. So the other thing I want to mention on is there's a lot on the news about this raid that occurred at Mar-a-Lago, and it's kind of dominating the news right now. And the first thing I want to say about it is ignore it. I think this is all designed to have us talking about the raid and not talking about inflation and the economy and the problems with the southern border and the oil and gas issues we have in this country and the geopolitics of the world with China and Taiwan and what's going on in Eastern Europe with Russia, Ukraine. Don't let people distract you from the real issues here with this raid on Mar-a-Lago stuff. I think it certainly unprecedented. I think extremely poor judgment to do that. And I think it's getting far more attention than it deserves. So don't be distracted about. One thing you should know is, and Trump was I think at Bedminster when it happened, but in the summer Mar-a-Lago's closed. It's a membership club, and they close it in the summer because a lot of folks leave Florida in the summer, and so it was just staff there. The president wasn't there, but don't be distracted by it. We know what the major issues are in this campaign. It's the economy, it's inflation, it's the southern border, and don't forget the fentanyl and the drug trafficking from that comes across southern border, because that's a New Hampshire issue. The drug deaths here are awful, and now I saw on the news that they confiscated a batch of fentanyl that looks like candy. And I talked about this before, how the Chinese are feeding that whole loop. They're poisoning the country. They're poisoning the country. Those are the major issues. You know, spending is out of control. This $750 billion act they just passed, that I'm not even going to say the name of it because it inaccurately describes what's going on with that bill. That bill will not reduce inflation. Many economists have weighed in on that. The University of Pennsylvania said in the long run, you know, it may increase inflation a little bit or it may reduce it a little bit. But it's another Washington, D.C. spending spree is what it is. And you know, and that's what the Democrats are going to do. That's why we have to get control of the Senate. We have to stop this madness, you know, and we have to elect good, strong conservatives. We have to get this spending under the control and focus on the issues. Don't focus on a raid on Mar-a-Lago. You know, inflation is going crazy. I don't know if you heard the other day Biden saying inflation was zero. I mean, what a bunch of BS that is. You know, what a bunch of BS that is. And here's the thing about that. Inflation is still, I think, year over year at 8.5%. But that's a year over year number that you're hearing. All right. And I looked at this, I don't have my notes, but as I recall, a year ago, inflation, so July 2021, inflation had ticked up to like 4.5%, 5.5%. So we're 8.5% over the 4.5%, 5%. So of course, that year over year number is going to diminish some as the comparables to a year ago were higher. So Biden somehow says that means inflation is zero. It's a bunch of BS, and don't listen to it. And I think the consumer price index, and I looked at this, I should have brought my notes out, compared to January 2021 when Biden took office, the CPI is like 14% higher. And even with the gas prices coming down, and you know, I think releasing the oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is huge mistake. You know, we're going to have to pay a lot of money to refill that. We should unleash the American oil and gas industry, and they will produce more. But the reason the gas prices have come down, they're still very high from when Biden took office, but the reason they've come down is demand has been reduced. And demand's reduced because they were so high. I mean, that's fundamental economics, supply and demand. And you know, when demand goes down, price comes down. That's why the oil and gas prices have come down, because we're not driving as much because it's too darn expensive. So focus on the issues. Don't be distracted by this stuff that the Democrats are trying to stir up to get us voters take the eye off the ball of the important issues: inflation, the economy, the southern border, oil and gas prices, the geopolitics of the world. So with that, I mean, I don't, you know, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in there. I'd be glad to answer them. And again, if there's a subject you want me to cover on one of these, please let me know. You can email me at corkymessner@gmail.com. You can call me or text me at 603-515-6542. I'm glad to help out. You know, we're going to have a get-together here in a few weeks, August 28th, for Katie Pertnell, who's running for state rep here in Wolfboro. She's awesome. She is incredible. And I want to do everything I can to help her win. You know, the other thing in the primaries, I've been asked to endorse various candidates, and I'm kicking around whether I should endorse or not. I do believe it's okay to endorse in a primary. Um, so that's certainly not an impediment for me. It's more for me a question of how strongly do I believe in any primary candidate, so that I would endorse them. So, I mean, if you have any thoughts on that, let me know. Let me know if you think I should endorse somebody or not, and I'll give it some thought. So I may or may not. I mean, we've got 3.5, 4 weeks, so there's plenty of time. So remember, focus on the issues, help Republicans win, help conservatives win. Whoever wins the primaries, get out and help them win, and don't listen to all this red wave stuff. We need to work. We need to outwork the Democrats in order to win this election. It's very, very important. So listen, thank you so much. It's been I'm going to go enjoy the evening here and go sit by the fire, and God bless you, and have a great weekend, and thank you for joining me. Have a good night. Bye-bye.